What is going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. We're doing another late night Nick at Night comic reviews of the books we picked up on September 6, 2021. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. All right, guys, we're back. Welcome to Nick at Night. We're going to be talking about the books we picked up on September 6, 2021. Non-spoilery, high-level kind of stuff. Not going to give away any major plot points. Tell you my overall impression of them. So in case you want to go back to the store and pick something up, you can feel free to and not lose out on any of the key moments that happen in the book. So we are talking about Big Two, starting off with ASM 75. This is post Nick Spencer's run. I did not read that, but that's okay. I'm jumping in now. Got that awesome Gleason cover. Can't beat it. So what do I think about this one? This is bringing back Ben Reilly. Ben Reilly is like a clone of Spider-Man. I'm going to let you look up who he is and his history and everything. But basically, we have Peter and we have Ben kind of interacting here. And Ben's kind of dropping some bombs. He's essentially saying that he has to come back. He has to participate. He's not really asking permission. He's working with a company right now to kind of bring Spider-Man into their dealings, right? And so we get a little bit of information about what that means. We have Peter kind of hanging out, just trying to, assumingly, recover from the events of the Nick Spencer run. So I'm a little bit foggy on the history and everything there. But basically, we're kind of touching base with all the characters. We're touching base with MJ. We have this villain squad that kind of comes in, and we have an interesting battle with Peter and Ben Reilly, and also this villain squad here. This is a cool interaction. Some of the power sets in here are pretty interesting. I'm not too familiar with a lot of Spider-Man villains, especially like the B, C, or like the C and D tier villains that he might have. But we kind of learn that Ben is way more equipped. His suit is way more advanced, and so Peter has a really difficult time with these villains, and he comes out pretty busted up because of it. So I think we're going to learn a lot more about Ben Reilly, his dealings with the company he's working with, these villains, how he's more prepared, how they're going to be handling that. And it looks like Peter's been kind of knocked out for a little while. And so I'm not entirely sure, how they're going to bring him back. Maybe this is going to be the way it's going to be going forward. Ben's going to be taking over for a little while. That's kind of how I'm reading it right now. And so, we have this very ominous page at the very, very back. Next issue 76, we have Peter Parker kind of laid up in the ICU bed here on a ventilator and whatnot. And the nurse in me is picking this apart right here, but that's pretty funny. I do enjoy that. So this is me getting into Spider-Man. We're going to try it out. Not too bad. If you've been reading Nick Spencer's run, what'd you think of that issue right there? And I usually don't watch too many reviews before, while I'm reading my books and before I do my reviews. And so I'm anxious to go back and see what you guys said about this, if you already posted something about it. So continuing Marvel, we have Dark Ages #2. So this book was really interesting. This is Tom Taylor. And so the first issue was very interesting. I liked the different characters they had in there. I liked the overall premise. I liked the storytelling that they did in the book. I love the art. So that was all really interesting. It seems like it's a cool, isolated story, but it's a worldwide, apocalyptic story. And so in this book here, we kind of do a little bit of a fast forward. The first issue was how the world went into the Dark Ages, how, the power went out, the threat that they had to face, and then the consequences of that battle, right? That got us to the Dark Ages. This fast forwards through a little bit more about the factions that have set up, about how humanity's kind of rebounded, the different alliances that have been set up. And we get a clear indication of the villain and the threat and a pretty cool plan that the villain has in this story. So it's very, very cool. If you like seeing mixed characters getting together from different teams, kind of collaborating on things like that, and you want something a little bit isolated out of the main continuity, this would be a really cool book. It's an interesting premise. I'm enjoying the art. I like the collabs that they have in this book. I think it's very interesting. I like where they're going. This is more of an Iron Man-centered book, and we learn all about the villain and their motivation. Pretty interesting book. Dark Ages #2. That's another great one to pick up. So that was it for Marvel. But we got a stack of DC. We got a stack of DC books. We're going to start with Swamp Thing, Rom V, issue #8. It's a 10-part series. There will be another part, though, after this. So if you're liking Swamp Thing, you can kind of hang tight, and you'll get some more of that. This is Rom V, Perkins and Spicer. on the art and coloring. And so this is kind of the conclusion, I hope, of the Suicide Squad tie-in. Movie was coming out. They had to do something. Rom's hands were probably tied, but he did bring them in and utilize them in a way that felt real natural. It felt like it didn't interrupt the story too much. It gave us a really good excuse to do a deep dive into Levi, who's the new Swamp Thing's past, his relationship with his family, specifically his father and his brother. What brought war to their land, what happened to his father, how his brother felt about it. And we also got a little bit of an introduction to where his brother is now. He's actually, how has he changed? Levi became Swamp Thing. Did something happen to the brother? Did he get powers of some kind due to some ritual they were performing as kids? Was this kind of destined to be? And so it was very, very interesting. We do have some Suicide Squad members in here, like Peacemaker and things like that. But, it wasn't extremely intrusive, and I didn't mind it. So, if you're going to do a tie-in, I think this is the appropriate way to do a tie-in. The art is absolutely gorgeous in the book. Ram V's writing is really, really deep. If you like Ram V from his past works, you're going to read this and you're going to immediately identify it as Ram V. If you're a big Ram V fan, you're going to love this work, especially if you're also a big Spicer and Perkins fan with the art and everything. It's killer. Swamp Thing's been a good ride. Can't wait for the second volume. Anxious to read 9 and 10, see how he kind of wraps it up. Is he going to leave it wide open for the next volume and kind of continue on? I hope so, because I kind of like this character here, and I want to see what else he can do. Okay, speaking of a creative team, this is Dan Waters, Danny, and Dave Stewart on Arkham City: Order of the World. So this is a really, really interesting book. I've been highly anticipating this book because it's kind of the aftermath of A-Day. So we have our attack on Gotham, or on Arkham Asylum rather, and everybody thinks it's the Joker gas bombing it, right? And that's kind of how we got the whole Peacekeeper one and Fear State. That's how we kind of got into Fear State a little bit. And then we got a spin-off into the Joker and all this other stuff. So a lot of the inmates are dead. A lot of the staff was dead, but there was this psychologist who was off duty that night, and a lot of her patients she was working with were villains that were in captivity in Arkham, and they've escaped. And so they're kind of using her to help understand, where the villains might be, what their next steps might be, what kind of mental state they might be in. And so it's interesting. They're kind of using her and her knowledge of her patients inside of the asylum to kind of track these guys down. They focused on a few different interesting characters here. We get a real up-close personal look at one immediately in the beginning of the game, or in the beginning of the comic here, which was a pretty cool thing to kind of get you introduced to the idea. Then they kind of, touch base on some of the other people that she's been helping, but they focus on one character in here, and I'm just going to say it's the ten-eyed man or something like that. And so he's a villain that I didn't know much about. I actually had to go online and look him up. I feel like they kind of took that character maybe from the original Batman run and then kind of tweaked him a little bit. So we have Ten-Eyed Man here in the most creepiest form you could imagine. And so I really, really like that. I'm digging the art. Danny is amazing. Dave Stewart's amazing. And so if you like the creative team from Coffin Bound, it's the exact same one. And it's really, really raw and gritty. And I'm having a ball with this book. So yeah, Arkham City, if you want a creepy villain-based Arkham book, that, Batman's nowhere in this book. So you're safe to read this book if you feel like you've been reading too much Batman, but you still want to be in the city, right? You still want to be in Arkham. Very, very cool book. Amazing creative team. Highly recommend it. Pick it up. Another one that surprised me. This is DC Horror Soul Plumber. So this is from Parks and a bunch of other folks on here. Man, written by Parks and Henry. I'm not even going to pronounce that last name. Lots of different pencils depending on the page and everything, and the art is amazing. So this is Soul Plumber. This was one that I had seen in the previews, and I saw it was DC Horror. Didn't quite recognize the creative team, but went ahead and took a chance on it. It's a 6-issue run. The cover art looked kind of creepy and weird, and so I just went with it. So basically, we have a story about a guy who's kind of having a young man who's having this like trouble with his faith. He's trying to find signs in his life. He's trying to make sure he's doing the right thing. He's kind of associating with some real scumbag people around, and it's kind of like reading the book Scumbag. It's that kind of grittiness to it. So he kind of comes across what he thinks is a sign, kind of teaming up with this like televangelist type person, this guy who gets up in front of crowds and like kind of does these exorcisms with this machine. And so he kind of says that he's a soul plumber, like an actual plumber that kind of like rips souls out of people. And so we learn what that is all about in here, and we learn it's a little bit tongue in cheek too. It might be like a gimmick to them, but maybe some truth behind it. And so our main character here, he tries to kind of get involved and gets into all sorts of trouble. And I think it's kind of brilliant. It's kind of like a mix between, it has like a little Ghostbuster vibe to it almost, because it's like ripping demons out of people and stuff like that. But the way that they do it is pretty interesting. And so it's just kind of great. I didn't expect this book to go in this direction, especially after seeing the cover like this. It looks like they're using metal detectors inside of the sewer, which is kind of interesting. And so maybe we'll learn more about what that means in the coming issues. But this one kind of surprised me. So Soul Plumber, it was pretty fun, especially around this time of year. I like to see more horror type books, right? And so this one was nice, and the art's really interesting. And I had a lot of fun with it. So if you have extra time and you want to read this, I'd recommend picking it up. A lot of good DC stuff this week. And man, talking about good DC, Nice House on the Lake, issue number 5. We got Tynan. Oh man, we have Bel Air. We have Martinez Bueno. This is amazing. This book is absolutely amazing. I got the B cover too over here. So, if you've been following the story, we've been seeing a lot of just crazy things. We got a group of people that all have this one man in common. His name is Walter. He's kind of touched them and been a part of their lives, in different moments. They all find themselves in this nice house by the lake or on the lake, and the world is going through devastation right now. But they're completely isolated. They are untouched. They are unharmed, living together in this like infinitely supplied magical house. And every issue we kind of focus on one character at a time. And so in this issue is no different. We're focusing on a single person. They are observant of like the time changes and things like that. And so they kind of make the revelation that, hey, maybe we were like inside of an enclosure. Hey, like I pay attention to stars and stuff like that. And like they're not behaving the right way. And it's pretty cool and interesting to see how each character kind of interprets the surroundings. So with that said, we have a lot of cool little revelations in here about, each person kind of understands and learns certain things, and they kind of keep it to themselves. So in this book, we have the whole group kind of sitting down. There's about a dozen people or so sitting down, trying to like unravel this mystery. Like, hey, I know this, or hey, I found this, and sorry, I didn't mention this. And, there's fights and stuff about why people didn't tell each other certain things. But all the little secrets that they have, they're trying to kind of piece it all together. And one secret kind of stands out among the rest. And the whole group goes to investigate it. And it's a pretty interesting turn of events at the very end. So I feel like this story takes giant leaps forward, but we don't quite know where it's going to go next. Like every time that I read an issue, I'm struggling to predict the next issue. And so I have no idea where this book is going. I'm pretty sure we have one more issue of this, and then it goes on a little bit of a hiatus. And so maybe 1 or 2 issues left to go. And so that's really a bummer, because I feel like this book is just picking up steam faster and faster and faster each month it comes out. And the story is just killer. Loving the story. It feels like it's made directly for TV or for a movie. So if you're not reading The Nice House on the Lake because maybe it's a DC book or something like that, and you're afraid of superheroes, no superheroes in sight in this book. So this is just a complete psychological thriller with apocalypse kind of thing thrown in there. It's brilliant. It's one of the best books out there right now. You got to be reading this book. Nice House on the Lake. It's amazing. If you like indie books, especially. If you like indie books, this is an indie book. Forget the label. All right, going into a book that's not an indie book, we have Batman issue 114. I got that Ghostmaker cover here, the cardstock B cover. This is the 3rd cover of the 3-part connecting series. There's going to be another set of 3 books coming out immediately after this that all connect. So if you're into that kind of thing, keep an eye out for the B covers. So this book is amazing too. So this is written by Tynan. We got Jorge Hernandez on the art. We got Howard in here. This is just, it's just brilliant. The art in this book and the color in this book are kind of breathtaking. It's amazing what they're able to do in here. And what makes this book stand out the most is the ambient lighting, the shadows, and just like the atmosphere it creates. It's like there's like raining, it's raining in these outdoor scenes. We have all these like floodlights everywhere of all these different colors, and the way that they use the reflections and things like that, it's just gorgeous. Even the interior shots, when they're inside and things, they add little details and nuances that you typically wouldn't see in a comic book. And so this is one of the best looking comic books out there right now. And the story is pretty interesting too. I kind of dig Batman stories where Batman just doesn't have the upper hand. He doesn't quite know what to do. It's okay for him not to know what to do. He was under the Scarecrow's control, like psychologically. It took him several issues to kind of break out of that hold, and he's still kind of recovering from it with the help of Ghostmaker. And so he's trying to get his bearings. He's trying to find out where Scarecrow is, how he's doing what he's doing. Meanwhile, he's got Peacekeeper 1 just kind of like terrorizing the town. He's under the toxin as well. Visualizing the worst in everybody and just kind of taking everybody out. So this book is the big battle between Peacekeeper 01, who was the security guard at Arkham who saved a lot of people during the Joker gas attack. And he's been converted into this magistrate peacekeeper, half robot kind of a guy. So it's a battle between him and the contingency plan in case he goes bad called Peacekeeper X. I think Simon Sate, who created the Magistrate and both of these guys, said that his suit costs, $500 million more, and, it can cut through Peacekeeper 1's armor like tissue paper or something like that. Well, we see what happens when we have a Scarecrow toxined out Peacekeeper versus, a regular Peacekeeper X. The artillery might be better, the suits might be better, but man, when you have like a rabid dog fighting like a trained dog, we'll see which one happens. And Batman's kind of caught in the middle of all this, trying to keep these two guys from just destroying the city. So man, it was really, really interesting to see this. The art is freaking gorgeous. I don't know what to say. This book is really, really brilliant. We get cool Miracle Molly scenes in the front and the back of the book, which are really interesting. And it feels like she's going to be playing a big role in the next part of Fear State. So this is Fear State Part 3. And I believe we have 15, 16, and 17, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we have 3 more issues in the main Batman run under Tynan. And then we're going to be kind of going on a little hiatus there with Batman, changing creative teams and whatnot. So, but I think Menendez is staying on the art and whatnot. So brilliant, brilliant book. This is another one that, can't say more, can't say enough about it. That's super cool. Man, that was it for the big 2. Man, we got a lot of DC. So let's get into the indies. Going over to Aftershock number 1. This is Chicken Devil. This book was crazy. So I'm not even going to pronounce the name. So we have Brian and Hayden. I'm going to let you look up the last names and everything in this book. Really interesting. I like giving books a shot, especially number 1s, and one with Chicken Devil. And the premise was basically a hot chicken restaurant owner. And I'm from Nashville. I live in Nashville. So when I hear hot chicken, I'm like, oh, this is great. But this is California hot chicken. So it's not hot chicken. There's actually a fake menu in the back. And I was reading the menu and just kind of shaking my head. I'm like, oh my God, what are you even doing here? So yeah. The names are great and everything. But we have brioche buns, we have spicy relish and American cheese and honey drizzle. Get that crap out of here. That's not hot chicken. Anyways, if you want to know some real hot chicken, hit me up. If you're ever in Nashville, we'll go to some good places. So, this was a funny book because essentially you have this guy who runs a hot chicken restaurant. He has a couple locations set up right now on the West Coast, and his partner is kind of like made this deal with like the mafia or like the mob in the area. So it's like a drug cartel kind of a thing. And they found out that there's some smuggling stuff going on inside this restaurant, and this owner wasn't quite aware of it. They kind of come back after an incident happens to their stash. They're not too happy about it, and they kind of take it out on this guy's family. And so, it's kind of like what happens when you have nothing else to lose, right? And so, that's kind of where we are. We're kind of in a situation where this guy's, inadvertently wrapped up in this other guy's drama with this drug cartel. It's kind of like a Punisher situation almost. What is he going to do now? Can he finally break bad? It's a Breaking Bad story for sure. But instead of cancer, his family kind of gets taken a little bit. So we got to figure out what he can do to kind of solve all this. And is he kind of man up and dress like this chicken devil and we'll go around taking out mafia people? We're not quite there yet, but we'll see. We'll see what happens over there. So, surprisingly decent book. We'll see where it goes. Aftershock's got some pretty cool stuff out. So we'll see. Going over to Dark Horse, we got two different Dark Horse books. We have Lucky Devil from Colin Bunn. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is this is the worst page. I've read a lot of Marvel books. This is the worst page quality I've ever seen in a book. Dark Horse has something going on. I don't know what it is, but both of these books are by far the worst page quality I've seen so far. I feel like I'm going to break it just kind of flipping through it. Lucky Devil was interesting. So if you read issue number 1, we basically had a guy who was possessed by a demon. He tried to get exorcised. The guy he went to was able to exorcise the demon, but he didn't exercise the powers that he was presented, that the demon presented him. So he's still able to do all kinds of weird stuff, kill people instantly, summon evil spirits, flay people, you know what I mean? Like his power set was crazy, and it kind of led him in a direction where he turned into like a Satanist, right? He kind of was like a televangelist, but for the devil in a way. And so he got the attention of a lot of people in that realm, and he started getting a lot of money and a lot of donations, and a lot of this thing went to his head. A little bit of the satire and the humor behind some of this is the demon that was exorcised is a physical demon now in the real world, living like in his condo, in his apartment with him, or in his property or whatever, in his house. And he's kind of like just chilling at the pool and stuff like that. So in this story here, we have a little bit more of his collaboration with like these Satanist kind of people. He's kind of getting in more money. The problem is the demon that was exorcised warns him in a previous issue that he's like, hey, I'm not the only demon. There's other demons out there, and they're pretty pissed that you did what you did, and they're going to come for you, and you better be prepared. And he kind of brushes them off, but we get the introduction of that team who's really upset with him in this book right here, and how can he handle them? They're full-fledged demons from hell. What are they going to do? So, they have their first interactions. They kind of handle that as best as they can, but they have to start planning because this is not going to be the last attack that they have on him. So he's kind of forced to team up with the demon that he exorcised in the first issue and kind of understand what the next plan is. And he has a pretty cool little interesting idea towards the end here that I won't spoil. So Lucky Devil has actually been pretty good. I really enjoyed this issue. Issue 1 and 3 were the best. Issue number 2 was kind of a far jump from issue number 1, but then issue 3 was a smoother transition. So that was good. If you're a little bit jolted by issue number 2, this one kind of picks up from there. And it doesn't really throw you off too much going from 2 to 3. So yeah, Lucky Devil, another a great book from Colin Bunn. Like that one a lot. The other Dark Horse book we have is Last Flight Out. This is issue number 2. Pretty solid premise, I thought. It's kind of like, the world's gone to hell, climate change, whatever, name your apocalypse. They're building these arcs to take off. The guy that invented these arcs and knows how to use them and launch them and things like that. He's trying to make sure his daughter's on board, and so she's actually not on board. And we kind of learn about the rockiness of their relationship growing up. He's kind of like a Tony Stark, just super obsessed with his work, not really paying attention to his family or anything like that. And then, when something like this happens, his daughter's nowhere to be found, and he has to go on a rescue mission to find her. So he's set up with some military detail to head out to Chicago to go rescue her. And Chicago's under martial law, so like all hell's broken loose. And so it's them fighting their way from where they land until they find his daughter. So we do learn a little bit more about the daughter. We learn a little bit more about their relationship, which was really fun. We learn more about the military, like the military detail that's been assigned to him, which I thought was pretty cool. There's a lot of little emotional tie-ins here and there. They set something up in the beginning and they kind of pay it off towards the end a little bit. And then we actually find his daughter, and she's kind of revealing that things aren't exactly perhaps as bad or as, her dad's been kind of explaining. And so, I feel like the next issues really kind of blow this out a little bit here. We have 16 hours to launch. It kind of gives you a countdown timer to keep track of where we are. And so I feel like she's going to kind of drop a bomb here about, perhaps we don't need to leave. Perhaps she's found a cure for the planet or a miracle or something like that. So Last Flight Out, I thought it was a pretty decent issue. I liked it, as much as issue number 1. I think it's a pretty solid thing. I'm going to keep going with it. Not too bad. That book was a little bit on the rocks for me, just a little bit, just because of volume. but it wasn't bad at all. The last book you'll ever read in Vault right now, we have Colin Bunn. So we have Colin Bunn writing for Dark Horse. We have Colin Bunn writing for Vault. And what else is he? Who else is he writing for? I don't know. Last book you'll ever read, issue number 3 from Bunn. So issue number 1 kind of introduced the fact that this woman was writing this book, and this book, when people read it, it kind of explains how, you know, their innermost desires are coming out, and for the majority of them, it's turning them into demons and killing people. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So she's on this book tour for some reason. She seems to kind of embrace this insanity that's related to this. People are possessed at her book signings and attack her, and she seems to be like, oh, wow, okay, let's go to the next one. But she's also assigned some kind of like protection, and so this guy is trying to protect her and trying to escort her from book reading to book reading or book signing or whatever. And so they kind of get involved. She's mysterious. He's a protector kind of a thing. So that relationship kind of blooms and blossoms right there. And there's some very explicit scenes inside this book. So this book is not for kids at all. And so this book here is kind of more of the same. It's, you know, these demons are trying to kind of hunt her down and things like that. And I think there's going to be a subtle layer of there's another protecting force out there that is, I think, revealed towards the end of this book. And we're going to kind of figure out what that means, I think, later. So this book is heading in a direction that I don't like right now. I think it's unnecessarily, like, sexually graphic. And it's just not as interesting as I thought it was going to be after reading issue number 1. I kind of dug the premise in the beginning. The art's not great either. I'm not a big fan of the way certain characters are drawn. I'm not a big fan of how certain scenes are drawn. It's like it's rushed. It's not very detailed. It's detailed in ways that I don't want it to be, and it's kind of like vague where I would want more detail. Some of the action scenes are kind of like, you know, there's not a whole lot there. There's not a whole lot there. And some of the emotions and things like that I don't think are represented well. Yeah, so I don't know. I might be dropping this, but there's only 2 more issues left. I think it's only 5 issues. So I hate to read 1, 2, and 3 and not read 4 and 5 and just get the full picture, you know? So, you know, if this was an ongoing, I'd be dropping it. But if it's only 5 issues, I'll keep going. So Colin Bunn, last book you ever read, issue number 3. Not as good as I wanted. All right, so we have Rob Williams on Upshot. This is issue number 1 of Out. So this was a cool book. The art in this book was amazing as well. So we basically have a series of prisoners. Did they go over the year 1944? We have your typical Nazi, you know, digging up, I'm assuming it's Nazis, digging up like relics and things like that, that might possess some kind of supernatural power. So this is no different than, you know, like your Indiana Jones or your Hellboys or your, you know, name it, right? You know, your Red Skull kind of stuff, your Captain American kind of stuff. So we have the introduction of this relic. It's like a sarcophagus. And then we kind of flash forward a little bit to these prisoners being taken to a camp. And there's a lot of cool dialogue with these different prisoners. They focus on a couple different ones. One of them is assumably going to be our main character. I think he's like Native American in descent, and he's kind of like a language expert. And so that's why he was there and he was captured. And so they're all kind of brought to the camp, ready for initiation, things like that, ready to get assimilated inside of the camp. And, you know, during a lot of the, you know, feuds and stuff in the barracks, and there's some loyalty issues or perhaps some mistrust issues and things like that among the ranks when they're putting them all together. There's kind of this like ghostly moment where our main character kind of hears something and he mishears it, but you know, he's you know, it's kind of like a ghost that kind of goes by him, something like that. And then something extremely shocking happens. Perhaps they've unlocked the mystery, you know, the German army here kind of unlocks the mystery of this relic that they have, and this thing's kind of wreaking havoc in the barracks. We're not quite sure yet. So we'll see what's going on here. I love the art. I like the storytelling. I like the characters that were in here. I like where this is going. It's really creepy. Yeah, I've been digging this one. So Out number 1, pretty cool. I'm liking this one. Can't wait to read it. It's a 5-part series, so, you know, not too much to invest into that one. All right, we're going to move over to Image. We have 3 Image books to go. We have Firepower number 16 from Robert Kirkman. And so this one was the same as every other Firepower book. We have lots of action, lots of highs. we have more information about this like Serpent Clan. I'm just going to call them that. It seems like this clan has been kind of in the shadows for a long, long time. And so now it's kind of their time to strike. And so now they're kind of going full force. They've been possessing people. As soon as they bite them, they kind of take them over. They're taking over a lot of the allies to Owen and his group. And so they're kind of attacking their homeland. So they're trying to retaliate and figure out what's going on with that. And so, of course, it's just another gigantic battle, like we just had a few issues ago back at the homeland. But now it's against the serpent group. And so there is something here that they've kind of been like showing you issue after issue in the previous issues, in the previous battles. They're trying to awaken this ultimate power. And so we get a little bit more of that in here, and we're going to see about what this ultimate power actually is, or what can possibly awaken it. So we might get some of that in future issues too. So again, Firepower, it's not a low. It's not really a low book. This is a high octane, lots of action, a lot of cool coloring, a lot of good pacing. It reads very, very fast. And so I think if you've been enjoying Firepower, this is probably on the higher end of what your enjoyment has been so far with the whole series, because lots going on in this book. So I've actually enjoyed this issue a lot. It kicked it up a whole bunch. I just wish that I could figure out, I can go back and kind of like reconcile the different clans and the battling, and okay, now I was on this clan, now I'm over on this clan now, and then this clan hates that clan, but this clan took over this clan. Now we have a serpent group coming. I wish I can reconcile that somehow. So if you guys know like an easy way to reconcile that, or you just know, please let me know in the comments, because I feel like I'm a little bit lost on the history of the different clans and who was fighting for who, and then did we switch sides all of a sudden? So let me know. All right, A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance, issue number 1. This is from Image, Rick Remender. I picked this one up because I got a lot of guys in my group were recommending this one, and it's Rick Remender. So I'm going to pick it up and check it out. Not a lot of dialogue in this, but we do have a really cool story. So it's basically a silent thing, but what I like about it is it does a really good job of kind of walking you through the life of this guy. And he's kind of, traveling around. He's kind of caught in the rain. He's doing good deeds for people. Letting the old people on the bus first, and letting them take a seat and things like that. And he's kind of going about his business. We don't quite know who he is or what he's doing. And maybe I'm just missing some subtle hints here. But we essentially have him kind of following this map on his phone, and he's there's some talk about some trafficking going on. And some accusers are disappearing. The Andrews accusers disappeared. I don't know if he's kind of like a private eye or an investigator or a cop. Whatever it is, it's kind of got this like Ice Cream Man style art in it too. And so there's all these little tiny subtleties of like foreshadowing here and there. And all these different series of events kind of build up and add up and go against our main hero towards the end, which I thought was a little bit unbelievable. It didn't quite understand how all these things can kind of pile up and go against him. But basically, at the very end of this book, we have a series of events that happened in the beginning of the book kind of come back to bite him at the very, very end. So we don't quite understand how we got into this situation, but the people he interacts with and some of the consequences of him being there all kind of are added up from previous events. And it's going to be interesting. I'm not entirely sure. There's not a whole lot of dialogue in this book. I hope we get a little bit of an introduction to the character, because we didn't get it in this book. We're just kind of following a day in a life, and then he ends up in a situation where, it's like the worst possible situation for him. And so, it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of hard to explain because there's not a lot of dialogue kind of helping drive the story, but we do get some shocking stuff at the end that was all kind of, laid out in the beginning. So, interesting book. I think Rick Remender is going to do something crazy with this. We'll keep going with it. I think it's only 5 issues, if I'm not mistaken. So we can ride that train for a little while. Take a chance on him. It'd be pretty good. Last book, The Me You Love in the Dark, issue number 3 from Scotty Young. So, man, I think what I've been saying about this book each time is it's absolutely gorgeous. So the coloring, the shadowing, and just the way that he's drawing these characters is kind of breathtaking. And so what we have is this female who's relocated to this house who, she didn't believe it was haunted, but the realtor said it was haunted. So, just picture Picture like, you know, Edward Scissorhands' house at the end of the street or something like that, right? Everyone's kind of gotten away from it, or goes away from it, ignores it. So she takes it to kind of get into the mood to paint, because she has an art gallery coming up soon and she needs motivation, because she doesn't have motivation apparently where she was. It turns out the house is, for all intents and purposes, haunted. And so the last couple issues, we've gotten to understand more about this ghost. She's interacting with it. Is it becoming a love interest? You know, we had some hints to that in the second issue. She kind of enjoys the ghost's company, so the ghost enjoys her company too. This ghost can like interact physically with the world, and so the ghost is providing her with the necessary inspiration for her to do her paintings. The other cool thing about this book is there are moments where there's no dialogue, and it's her kind of like going about her day, you know, going about her morning, and so, but you can like almost hear it. It's like drawn so well, you can almost, you know, hear the panels, which is really kind of insane. That's one way to put it. And so, but this book really kind of illustrates the relationship blooming between her and this ghost. It's almost like they're dating. You know, they're like watching movies together. They're celebrating holidays together. I feel like a lot of time has passed in this book, but it's only probably a matter of weeks. You know what I mean? Like it's already fall. There's snow on the ground. There's Christmas trees, things like that. And so, you know, she's trying to build up this collection for the art gallery and things like that. And so some pretty shocking things happen during the development of this relationship. And this book has way more dialogue than any of the other books so far, I think. But we have not lost just the spookiness, the craziness, the awesome coloring, the awesome use of shadows and whatnot. So yeah, I like this issue a lot. It's going in a weird direction, and you'll know what I mean if you read the book. It's going in a weird direction, so we'll see, you know, what kind of comes from that. And we had some interesting little foreshadowing moments about, you know, this ghost kind of asked her what her dreams were and things like that, and she kind of revealed a couple things about what she's ready for, what she's not ready for. And so I'm interested to see if maybe that kind of backfires on her a little bit. But The Me You Love in the Dark's been a great series so far. Not a lot in issue number 1. Issue number 2 was great. And issue number 3 really builds on that and pushes it more into the weird direction than the mysterious direction. I think number 2 is more mysterious. This one's a little bit more weird. And yeah, so that's what I thought about that. So man, usually at the end of these videos, I go through and I try to pick out some books that I think, if you only had to pick up just a few books, which one you should pick up. I'm going to go through them again real quick. So I think The Me You Love in the Dark was really solid. I think Out's going to be fun, and I had a good time reading that. As I go through, Batman 114, that was killer. I love that issue. Nice House on the Lake is an absolute must-read. I think as far as number 1s go, Soul Plumber was fun. Look, Kitchen Devil wasn't as good. Arkham City was fire too. I loved Arkham City. Swamp Thing was okay, but it's a tie-in. It's ending that. It's really solid. If you're a Rom V fan, you're going to love the book. But I think if you're not a Rom V fan or not into that kind of a thing, that one might be a little bit hard to get into. Spider-Man, I would say, if you really want to get into the character, you can get into it there, but it wasn't an issue that blew me away. Dark Ages was kind of the same way. It was pretty good. But I would say that the best books of the week so far were Arkham City, Soul Plumber, Nice House, Batman, Out, and The Me You Love in the Dark. So those are the books that I think are the best. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books. If I had any questions throughout this review and you have the answers to them, or you want to explain something to me that I kind of questioned in this, feel free to put that down below in the comments. I love engaging with you guys. So thanks for that very much. Thanks for watching the video. As always, like, subscribe, share, hit the thumbs up, hit the bell notification for future videos. I really do appreciate it. It really does help. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the comments.